But women were going, oh, I couldn't possibly run. And I said, look, you're not going to get elected, but we do want you to run because we need the votes. We just said to people, it's not rocket science. Politicians would like you to think it is rocket science. It is not.
I think many women didn't really want to put themselves forward. It took a lot of courage, a lot of determination, and a lot of having to expose your own identity in a society where identity was so closely linked with trouble, with violence, with danger.
These were women who, from working class areas, who had suffered through 30 years or 25 or whatever it was then of conflict. Many women in that room had been bereaved, or had sons, brothers, fathers in prison. And we needed to make sure that we were there to try and bring about the change that was needed to move the society forward. So without thinking of the consequences, people put their hands up.
Margaret Logue will do 5. So you're prepared to let your name go forward? Keep going, folks.
Claire, could we have somebody instead of Anne McCann?
Carol, could you find somebody if it's not yourself?
Yeah.
I just found an irresistible urge to put my hand up and say, yes, I'm in there. I'd never been in a political party before in my life. It wasn't politics, it was peace that I wanted.
You don't know this, but tonight we have agreed 48 candidates.
We all got carried away. And this was about our lives, our futures, the futures of our children. It was brilliant. It was just, they were all so enthusiastic. It just took your breath away.
Hello, Northern Ireland Women's Coalition.
So we modelled it that it would be a cross-community party, and we would have 2 leaders. One from the Catholic nationalist community, one from the Protestant unionist community, from the word go.
To my shock, horror, panic, my name and Monica's name were the 2 names that went forward. I went to a second meeting and I agreed, thinking, no worries, it ain't going to happen.
To many people in the room, Pearl Seeger probably wouldn't have been a name. Pearl was a community worker, but then there's hundreds of community workers. Monica was a professional woman. Monica was a lecturer in university. Monica would have been very well known. But I just thought Pearl was a street fighter, like myself, and she wasn't going to take no nonsense, and that's what we wanted.
A lot of people were frightened over the years to stand up and speak out, and who can blame them? You'd need to have been mad to put yourself forward. In the Women's Coalition, I think I was mad enough to do that, so was Monica and a lot of our members.
So we went at the very last moment to put in the names. We left the offices about 4:15. The closing was 5 o'clock. And we ran into a traffic jam.
Right, we'll just wait with fingers crossed and get a shot of
This lady arrives. She doesn't down terrible. You're not filming me cutting the throat.
The Women's Coalition were the last to nominate their candidates for the election, just minutes ahead of the 5 o'clock deadline.
You're late.
The press conference has been called this morning to launch our manifesto, the Northern Ireland Women's Coalition Manifesto.
On one level, it was completely chaotic, but on another level, it just worked. We knew we had energy, we had experience, we had expertise, and we had a lot of attitude.
The Women's Coalition is interested in a solution, in reaching an accommodation so that we all can move forward, and we will be proved correct when we go to the polls on May the 30th.
Hear, hear.
Remember, we had no money. We had the most pathetic of posters, and they would be the first to fall down in the rain, but women were back out again the next day, putting them back up. The slogan was, "Wave goodbye to dinosaurs."
And it was a cartoon dinosaur superimposed on the women's suffrage colours, the green, white and violet. Give women the vote. But a lot of the male politicians came back and said, well, we're really annoyed. They're calling us dinosaurs. We said, well, we didn't call you a dinosaur, but if you want to self-identify, please don't let us stand in your way.
It was quite obvious that the traditional parties had no intention of bringing forward women. They just weren't going to do it. I mean, it's about power. These guys, this was their big chance. They've been slugging it out in local councils, fighting over bins. For 25 or 30 years, this was their big chance, and they weren't going to share it with anybody.
Women's Coalition are standing in this area. Come out and give your vote to make a difference.
Well, you know, a group of women campaigning is a bit of a joke, so it was something to be laughed at. I do remember this, you know, this idea of, you know, go back to your kitchen and the hen party and all this kind of nonsense. And that view started to come very clear when we got to the stage of trying to actually seek votes. That's when things did become hostile.
Some got death threats, some were told, how dare you, some didn't. Some in the beginning couldn't even say that they were involved.
And my family were saying, oh yeah, I suppose this has to be done, but does it have to be you? Yeah, there were scary moments, but there's a sense actually of freedom in facing it.
I wouldn't vote for a woman, Andrea, in this circumstance. A daft question.
Hello. Hello.
Hello there.
They aren't representative of the decent Ulster woman that I speak to. The Ulster woman in the past has seen herself very much as being in support of her man. As far as those individuals representing the Women's Coalition is concerned, I think that people will draw their own conclusions by the fact that they're prepared to come out of the closet now.
Political parties and groupings should be regarded as people on their merits, on the vision that they will bring to politics, the commitment they will bring to politics, not just because they're men or not just because they're women.
I do have some dubious thoughts about how they, as a cross-community group, can look at this election and have a policy that is at all rational.
Well, I know there's criticism at the minute that women are going to look foolish if this doesn't come off. And that's very unfortunate. I don't feel we will look foolish even if we didn't get in. We've learned over the last 25 years how to cope with setbacks and different ceasefires breaking down, and I think we'll cope very, very well because as women we generally do.
Women are 52% of the population in Northern Ireland. We have a right to be at the talks table. It's our future's being talked about, and it shouldn't be talked about solely by men.
I agree. I mean, do we realise what's happening here? The future of this part of the world is going to be decided, and there are going to be no women there. We're going to be outside minding the kids.
This is actually historic. Have you ever in Northern Ireland seen a group of all shades of political colour sitting in one place at one time, all ready to talk to each other? It's like a microcosm of what should be happening in the Northern Ireland, and the women are showing it.
Getting elected was unbelievable. That for the first time, there were women going to be there as a political party, as a women's party in its own right.
Even then, it didn't quite sink in. The two people were only going to be me and Monica. Even though with loads of women behind us, always had, and brilliant women, at the end of the day, you're the two people sat at that table.
On the first day of the negotiations, I told the delegates to the talks representing 10 political parties in Northern Ireland and the British and Irish governments that I did not come with an American drafted agreement. If there were ever to be an agreement, it had to come from them. They had to have a sense of ownership.
And the first days were difficult. People wouldn't talk to one another, and if somebody said something, then somebody would leave because they weren't open to hearing one another either. If we're talking about peace negotiations to create a society where people aren't going to feel so driven into a corner that they actually have to lift a gun and shoot somebody, then there's change needed. And peace is people choosing to live differently.